headline, all caps, you're using keywords. Okay, youth is a big one. Social media, another big keyword. Sustainability, and then say restaurants or retail. So if people are searching for these things and they're on newswires, so for example, a reporter will be on a newswire and will be looking for story leads that are related to stuff that they normally write about, or are related to stuff that other folks within their company are writing about, and they may be searching for these keywords. So it's incredibly crucial to have keywords at the top of any headline that you have. You need to, in the headline, you need to mention the larger problem. Okay, so sustainable food is a big, big problem. Youth, childhood obesity, etc. So if you can get a couple of those keywords and that big problem right up there in that headline, or at the very least in the subheadline, that really kind of helps with the search. It needs to be attention grabbing. It needs to be something that's kind of riveting to someone who's interested in this sort of thing. So this one is a very businessy sort of press release. This was written for a particular kind of audience, and you'll see that if you read the downloadable document, who this was sort of intended for. But it's kind of businessy. It's people who are writing about trends and food and youth development and childhood obesity and public health problems. It's not necessarily written for a blog that a mom is writing about her child, who is growing up and trying to be green about it. Then it would be a little bit more kitschy, it would be a little bit more cutesy. This is a little bit more dry, and it's intended to be so. This is something that we want to see appear in something like, for example, a newspaper or something along those lines, some organization that's looking at long-term trends and bigger picture items. It needs to be timely. That's the last big kind of key. So if you look at this, the press release within the document, you can't really read it, but the very first line says something about a Harris poll that had just come out, which had announced something about childhood obesity and how it's related to kids not being able to find good food options. And so it's a timely thing. This information just hit the news. How are you then relating that information, those statistics, that data, to your particular realm of expertise? Pull that together and make it timely. You should add a tweetable line. So this is, at some point somebody asked the question, is the traditional press release dead in the era of social media when everything needs to be 140 characters? It is not dead, but it is definitely changed. So the idea is that you want to have a permanent link somewhere else with all this information, and you want to have that to have a tweetable line. So you need to create a 140 character sentence, a tweet, for example. Put that right at the top of your press release and have that say childhood obesity and sustainable food options. How are kids finding healthier options, healthier food? And then put a link to it right there. And then that link should bounce directly to your website where all this information is, and that helps drive information back to, or it helps drive readership back to the product that you are promoting. And again, is placed in a situation where it's not necessarily advertorial, but it's, here's the bigger problem. Our product, our service helps to alleviate this bigger problem in a very tangible and practical kind of way. You want to put contact information very easy to find in the top left. Consider yourself, if you're sitting at your desk and you're a journalist, this press release comes across your desk and you're looking at it, that contact information, if it's not right at the top, you don't want to go searching for it because you might read it, you might see the headline, you might shush it aside, you'll see 5 or 10 other press releases come through, and then at some point something starts clicking and you say, oh, I could actually run with that story. Let me go back to this one. You don't want to have them searching for any contact information. If they have to search for something, you're creating a barrier for them actually publishing it, because at some point, good journalists will call you and get an interview to find out a lot more. The first paragraph summary is the real moment where you draw from attention-grabbing headline to actual body of your text. There's a transition there that needs to happen. So what's happened recently that has made this particular element that you're throwing out there relevant to the news outlets, readers, listeners, or viewers, depending on if it's TV, radio, or print? So if there's something, for example, this Harris poll that just came out that documents something about childhood obesity and a lack of access to good food, that's your opportunity to see this transition from, big picture to small picture, which is the body of your press release. So the body of your press release is where you will provide real-world insights, quotes from people who are in the field. If you're talking about childhood obesity and you can get a quote from Michelle Obama, brilliant. It doesn't have to be you calling Michelle and saying, "Hi Michelle, this is Scott Cooney, I'm calling from greenbusinessowner.com. Would you care to give me a quote on childhood obesity?" But you can actually just surf the web and find quotes from people who are famous, who are talking about these issues on a day-to-day basis. Put some quotes, put some real-world insights, put some statistics, address the larger social issue that you mentioned at the top and how this news relates to that problem. That's the whole body. I mean, you want to have maybe 3, maybe 4 paragraphs, brief paragraphs of 2 to 3 sentences each. Don't go too nuts. Make it easy for people. Make it very practical information, very interesting information, but do not overwhelm anyone. Then you put your information at the bottom. Why are you the right person to do this? Why is your company relevant? Why are you credible? You got to be brief, but you got to be confident in what it is. Don't oversell yourself, but put yourself out there as an expert in this arena. You study it on a day-to-day basis. This is what you do for a living. You know this stuff better than most. And here's why your information should be considered as part of why this press release is actually something that a person would want to pay attention to. Consider again, you're the journalist. You're writing this story. They're going to stand on you for information that they're then promoting to people. They want to know that whoever they're getting their information from is a credible source, because otherwise it's going to come back to them, and if they're not standing on a stable foundation, then the whole thing kind of falls apart, and then they have to issue apologies and that sort of thing. Again, the web URL is down there at the bottom, so you can take a look at that anytime, and if you have questions you want to punch them into the chat box, that's fine too. Okay, there's several barriers to publication, and so we want to talk a little bit about, now that you've sent off, you've created this great press release, and you're thinking about sending this off, what are the barriers to actually getting this thing published? There is, as I said before, there's a lot of competition out there, so try to overcome this writer overload by hitting up slow news days, if at all possible. If there is a major event going on, relevant or kind of somewhat relevant to what you're doing, you have a couple of options. You can avoid it, or you can try and dovetail it one side or the other and try and kind of get on the coattails of the bigger train. But if you really want to kind of stand alone for this, you want to try and avoid those bigger events, because all the news coverage is going to be covering those bigger events. You want to make the actual publication of this incredibly, incredibly easy. I will tell you that as a blogger, when people send me information and want me to write about their company or the products that they're selling, if they send me something that is well written and concise and just practical and has great support materials, and they've given me a very easy opportunity to follow up with them, they have a permanent link somewhere where I can read more information, they have a phone number and an email address, it just makes my life a lot easier. And if I don't see that, I'm pretty much not going to publish it unless it's something I'm super passionate about. And even then, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So if you can make it easy for somebody by incorporating all of those elements, everything that you need to put in there, then go for it. Because that is the number one way that the person, you're eliminating all these barriers that the person is putting up and saying, I'm not going to publish anything that comes through that's just not clean and simple and easy to do. Make their lives easy, and it will come back in due course. Again, you want to link to something a little bit more permanent for reference. If you can put up a blog article on your website, or if you can get a blog article on someone else's website that you can send traffic to and say, for further information, take a look at this. This is the first place that we got covered 2 months ago for something similar, and now we're building on this, and we have this is the next level of this. So, for example, if you're creating a board game, you want to do a press release around the board game, and then the next level will be, can you turn it into an iPhone app or a Facebook game or something along those lines, And you can always go back to saying, well, we created this board game. It's had cool success so far for the first 2 months. Now we're turning it into a virtual game, and we want to take it to the next level. Here's what people are saying about the board game, and here's what we think will happen with the iPad app or whatever it is. So link to something a little bit more permanent for reference. The last real big barrier to publication for these things is if you write something and send it off to a media outlet and it's sort of inconsistent with the editorial style of that outlet. Again, the New York Times is written at a certain level, whereas the Salt Lake City Tribune is written at a certain level, and whereas Entrepreneur Magazine is written at a certain level, and Harvard Business Review is written at a very different level. If you can make sure that the press release you're sending is on that editorial level, then that person, the writer, can take that and use it much more easily. But if it's written at a kind of a fun, goofy, tongue-in-cheeky kind of level, and you're trying to get it published by Harvard Business Review, you're just out of luck. So here's the big thing. Think about this. So I always, one of my personal goals in life is always to work on my empathy and really understand where other people are coming from before I pass any kind of a judgment around what they've said to me or things that they've written, anything along those lines. Try and understand the other person. And if you can do that, your communications with them will be a lot stronger. So I love to say that empathy, it'll get you everywhere. Much like flattery, it will get you everywhere kind of thing. Here's, take a look at this picture and you can understand what people are doing at their news desk. They've got piles of paper, they've got 3 computers, they've got a fax machine that's kicking stuff out. They're trying to come up with a cover spread for the next month, and they're looking at a variety of pictures and websites and whatever else. They're very busy people, and they have a lot of paper in front of them. They have a lot of information crossing their desk every day. If you are, if you work on your empathy with those folks, you'll understand why a good, clean, concise email that says, "Hi, John, I love what you've written last month about social entrepreneurship in Nebraska and how it's changing such and such community. I wanted to let you know I've got this cool workshop coming up that is a green business economic development workshop, running it with the state of California, and it's open to all comers, it's free, and et cetera, et cetera. Here's a press release attached for it. If you have time for it, great, I'd love to chat with you. If not, cool, thanks a lot for promoting what you do." If you say this to this person in 2 sentences at the top of an email, they will appreciate so much more than just an email like, "Hi, so-and-so," or "To whom it may concern, I have this really cool thing that my company is doing. Here's a press release attached at the bottom of this email. Please get in touch whenever you have a moment and we can chat about it." Have some empathy around what these folks are going through. A lot of them are seeing budget cuts. A lot of them are seeing lack of advertising as their advertising moves more and more online. A lot of them are seeing a decreased number in readership. Lots of competition. They're trying to do 2 jobs as things get more and more outsourced and more and more lean. A lot of folks are playing double duty as an editor and a writer. It's just challenging. So put yourself in their shoes, just like everything else. Put yourself in your customer's shoes, try to understand where they're coming from, and deliver that value for them.